The invincible empire. For thousands of years, the galaxy knew only one truth: the empire could not be defeated. Their fleets were endless, their armies vast, and their weapons burned through steel and stone like fire through dry leaves. Planet after planet fell under their banner. Civilizations that had survived for centuries were reduced to ashes in only days. The empire was not merciful. To them, other species were nothing more than resources, workers to be enslaved or rebels to be crushed. They did not negotiate. They did not compromise. They conquered, and they ruled. Everywhere in the galaxy, whispers of their strength spread. Some called them gods of war, others called them monsters. But no one dared to stand against them. The memory of resistance always ended the same way. Broken fleets, shattered cities, and silence. Their leaders grew arrogant. Generals sat on thrones of crystal, wearing crowns of metal forged from conquered worlds. They boasted of their victories, celebrating the fall of every new planet. To them, the galaxy was only a board, and they were the players moving pieces at will. The younger generation of the Empire never even knew fear. They were raised in luxury, taught that no enemy could ever harm them. Their history lessons told stories of endless victories, never of defeat. Their children played with toy ships modeled after the fleets that burned through the stars, and yet, in the shadow of their glory, rumors began to spread. A scout ship had returned from the outer rim. Its hull was damaged, scarred by strange weapons. Its crew looked pale and shaken, not with the fear of death, they were trained for that, but with the fear of something they could not understand. They spoke of a new species, one that did not fight like the others. They called themselves humans, the scout captain reported to the High Council. His voice trembled as he stood before the towering generals. They are not the strongest, not the largest, not the most advanced. But did they fight differently? The council chambers roared with laughter. Generals pounded their armored fists on the table. Admirals sneered and leaned back in their golden chairs. Another species? Another world to burn. What could possibly make them different? The scout captain swallowed, forcing the words out. They do not surrender. Even when outnumbered, even when their ships are falling apart. They fight until the very last man, one of the generals smirked. Foolish courage is still foolishness. Let them die with honor if they wish. It makes no difference, but the captain did not smile. You don't understand. They choose death over chains. They fight not for power, but for something else. Something we cannot break. And every time they lose, they learn. They adapt. They grow stronger. The council silenced him with a wave of the hand. To them, the report was nothing more than the ramblings of a frightened soldier. The Empire had heard such things before. Many species had tried to resist. None had survived. Still, a spark of unease flickered in the room. The scouts' words hung in the air like smoke. The Empire had always won because their enemies broke quickly. Fear was their weapon as much as fire and steel. But what if they faced an enemy that did not fear? No one spoke of it, not openly. But in the minds of a few, a thought began to grow. Could there be a foe that would not bend? Days later, the order was given. A fleet would travel to this earth to crush the humans before they grew too bold. To the generals, it was a simple task. Another world to add to the long list of victories. They promised the council that the human species would kneel within weeks. The fleets launched with thunder, tearing through space, their engines glowing like suns. Thousands of ships, armed with weapons that had destroyed entire civilizations, set a course for the human frontier. But among the younger officers, whispers spread. The scout's story returned to their minds. They do not surrender, he had said. What kind of enemy fights like that? What kind of people would rather die than kneel? The thought unsettled them, though they would never admit it aloud. As the fleet drew closer to human space, silence filled the halls of the Empire's ships. The soldiers sharpened their blades, the gunners checked their weapons, and the admirals prepared their strategies. Victory was expected. Victory was inevitable, or so they believed. Yet far away, on the blue planet called Earth, humanity was watching too. Their telescopes tracked the incoming armada. Their leaders knew what was coming. And unlike the other species of the galaxy, they did not plan to hide or beg. or bow, they planned to fight, and in that moment, without the Empire knowing, the first cracks appeared in the myth of their invincibility, for the galaxy had lived under one truth for too long. The Empire could not be defeated, but the universe was about to learn a new truth, one that would echo for all time. Humanity never surrenders. The first encounter. Alien fleet entered human space like a storm. Thousands of ships tore through the void, their engines glowing with the fury of suns. The admirals of the Empire expected fear. They expected panic. For centuries, their arrival had always meant the same thing, submission or destruction. But when the Empire's fleet reached the edge of a human colony, something strange happened. There was no silence, no desperate calls for mercy, no surrender. Instead, human ships rose from orbit, like hunters standing to face a predator. Their designs looked crude compared to the sleek warships of the Empire. Human weapons seemed small, their armor thin. The admirals laughed. To them, it was like watching children raise sticks against a storm. The order was given, fire. The stars lit up with fire as the Empire's weapons cut through the void. Explosions ripped apart the first line of human ships. Dozens of them burned, falling into silence. The generals smiled. It would be quick, but then something changed. The remaining human ships did not retreat. They did not scatter. They fought harder. Every ship lost seemed to make the others fight more fiercely. A small human frigate darted forward, weaving through the Empire's heavy fire. It slammed directly into the side of a massive battleship, detonating in a burst of light. The battleship shuddered, its shields cracking. The admirals of the Empire frowned. That was not expected. Another wave came. Human ships did not stand in lines like most enemies. They moved unpredictably like wolves circling prey. They struck at weak points, vanished into shadows, and attacked again. The battle raged for hours. The Empire destroyed hundreds of human ships, but each time they expected the humans to break, the humans answered with another strike. Their small ships slipped into blind spots, cutting supply lines, disabling weapons. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt something it had forgotten. Resistance. One alien commander snarled as his screen filled with human transmissions. He expected pleas for peace. Instead, he heard voices filled with fire. "Hold the line! Fight until the last ship! For Earth, for humanity!" The commander growled and slammed his fist into the control panel. These were not the cries of the defeated. These were the cries of warriors. By the end of the battle, the colony burned. Many human ships were destroyed. But the Empire had lost too, more than they wished to admit. 4 heavy cruisers, a dozen smaller destroyers, and countless soldiers. The cost was higher than anyone expected. The admirals tried to dismiss it as bad luck. A minor setback, but deep inside, they knew the truth. This was no ordinary species. As the fleet pulled back to repair, the alien soldiers whispered to one another. These humans were not like the others. They fought as if they were unbreakable. And then came the most terrifying discovery. When the Empire's scouts tracked the human survivors, they expected to find broken remnants limping back to their homeworld. Instead, they found new fleets already gathering. Human shipyards burned through the night, building faster than the Empire had thought possible. Every loss was being replaced. Every defeat turned into preparation. The humans were not weaker after battle. They were stronger. Reports reached the alien council. At first, the leaders laughed again. "Let them build," one general said. "The more ships they send, the more ships we will destroy." But another general, older and wiser, leaned forward and spoke with a heavy voice. "You do not see the danger. We have fought countless enemies, yes, but they all broke after the first defeat. These humans, they learn, they adapt, they evolve." The council grew silent. The old general continued. "For the first time in 1,000 years, I fear we may face an enemy that cannot be conquered." His words were ignored by many, but in the shadows they spread. Back in human space, survivors of the first battle stood tall. They buried their dead, rebuilt their ships, and vowed never to kneel. Humanity had seen the Empire's power, and now the Empire would see theirs. One human captain, standing on the bridge of a newly forged ship, spoke words that echoed through every radio channel. They think we are weak. They think we will bow. But the stars will remember this day. Humanity fights, and humanity does not stop. Far away, the Empire listened, and for the first time, the gods of war felt the first flicker of doubt. The hidden strength, the Empire repaired its fleets quickly. For them, battles were nothing new. They had fought and crushed hundreds of species. One lost cruiser, one broken line. Such things were minor. Yet something about the battle with the humans left a mark that would not fade. The admirals told their soldiers it was only bad tactics. Next time, humanity will fall in a single strike. The soldiers cheered, but their voices carried unease. In private, many remembered the way humans fought, wild, desperate, but unshakable. Reports from spies soon reached the council. At first, the leaders ignored them, but each new report brought darker news. Human fleets were multiplying, not one or two, but dozens. New shipyards glowed like fireflies around their worlds. Factories that once built machines for peace now forged weapons of war. Their engineers worked day and night. Their designs improved with every battle. The most shocking part was speed. Other species took centuries to build fleets. Humans needed only months. Every defeat only fueled their determination. Every scar turned into a lesson. A captured alien spy trembled as he spoke before the council. They do not fear death. When one human falls, another takes his place. When one ship burns, two more rise. It is as if their strength comes not from metal, but from something we cannot see. The council grew restless. Generals demanded answers. Admirals questioned their strategies. For the first time in ages, cracks of doubt spread through the mighty empire. One elder, whose memories stretched back to the first days of conquest, whispered, "We always believed power was in numbers, in weapons, in fire, but humans fight for something else, something we never understood. They fight for each other, for home, for survival." Meanwhile, in human space, the truth became clear. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. They had united in a way the Empire had never seen. Old nations once divided stood side by side. Soldiers volunteered in millions. Civilians worked in silence, knowing every bolt they hammered, every wire they twisted, could save their world. And then came the fleets. The first time the Empire returned, they expected resistance. They expected another desperate defense. But what they found shook even the most hardened admirals. A black void filled with stars, and every star seemed to move. Ships, thousands upon thousands of human ships, stretching across the darkness like a sea of steel. The Empire's scouts panicked. It cannot be. How did they build so many? And yet it was true. Humanity's hidden strength had been revealed. The battle that followed was chaos. The Empire still had stronger weapons, heavier ships, and vast experience. But the humans had something more dangerous: adaptability. They attacked from every angle, swarming like a tide. Their smaller ships darted between massive cruisers, cutting them apart from within. Their carriers launched endless waves of fighters, overwhelming the skies. When one formation fell, another rose to take its place. When one strategy failed, a new one appeared within minutes. The aliens had always relied on fear. But the humans did not fear. They did not break. They fought like fire spreading through dry forests, unstoppable, growing larger with every strike. The Empire won that day, but it was not victory. The cost was too high. Whole fleets were lost. Commanders did not return. In the silence after battle, one alien admiral sat alone in his chamber, staring at the stars. He whispered the truth no one dared say aloud. They are not like us. They are not like any we have faced. If we do not crush them now, we may never crush them at all. The Empire's leaders still boasted in public, but deep down, unease grew. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire had met a species that was not weaker after defeat, but stronger. And somewhere across the void, the humans prepared again. Their leaders knew the cost. They knew many would die. But their message was clear, spreading across every world, every ship, every soldier. We will not bow. We will not break. The stars belong to no empire. The stars belong to those who fight for them. And so, the stage was set. The empire, vast and proud, still believed it could rule the galaxy forever. But humanity had shown its hidden strength, and the galaxy itself began to wonder. What happens when a species that never surrenders finally rises to power? The Great War, the galaxy had always belonged to the Empire. For generations, their banners stretched across the stars, and their fleets crushed all resistance. But now, the stars burned with war. It began with small battles, human raiders striking supply lines, small fleets ambushing convoys. The Empire dismissed them as annoyances, calling humans insects biting a giant. But soon the bites became wounds, and the wounds began to bleed. Humanity did not fight like the others. They did not stand in lines and wait for destruction. They fought like hunters, clever and patient. They struck where the enemy was weakest, and they vanished before retaliation could come. Every battle was a lesson, every defeat a seed for victory. The Empire responded with fury. They launched massive fleets, larger than entire nations, to wipe out humanity once and for all. But when they entered human space, they found a nightmare waiting. The humans had laid traps. Entire asteroid belts mined with explosives, gas clouds seeded with hidden satellites, moons hollowed into fortresses. Where the Empire expected open space, they found walls of fire. The first great clash shook the galaxy. At the edge of a dying star, the Empire brought a fleet of 5,000 ships, heavy cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts. The humans met them with fewer numbers. Their ships were smaller, their weapons weaker, but their minds were sharper. The humans fought like wolves circling prey. One group drew the Empire forward, while another slipped behind. Suddenly, the Empire's mighty cruisers found themselves trapped in crossfire. Mines exploded from hidden asteroids. Small frigates darted under the shadows of the dreadnoughts, cutting them apart from the inside. The battle lasted 3 days. When the smoke cleared, the star itself dimmed from the explosions. The Empire had won, on paper. Humanity lost half its fleet, but the truth was darker. The Empire had lost too much. Their mighty dreadnoughts burned, their supply lines broken, their soldiers shaken. The galaxy watched, and whispers spread, the Empire bleeds. Humanity's courage became legend. On conquered worlds, slaves lifted their heads for the first time in centuries. If humans can fight, they whispered, then maybe we can too. Across the stars, sparks of rebellion began to glow. The Empire tried to crush these rebellions, but their fleets were stretched thin. Wherever they went, humans struck elsewhere. There was no rest, no safe place. The invincible giant had too many wounds and too few hands to cover them. One alien commander begged the council, "We cannot fight them like this. Every time we strike, they strike harder. Every time we win, they rise again. We are drowning in a war we cannot control." But the council, proud and blind, refused to believe. "We are the Empire," they declared. "We do not fear insects." And so the war grew worse. Human fleets multiplied. It seemed impossible, but every year they grew stronger. Their shipyards produced vessels faster than the Empire could destroy them. Their fighters swarmed like storms. And above all, their spirit never broke. A legend spread among the Empire's soldiers. They said that when a human fleet arrived, the stars themselves seemed to vanish. Thousands of ships filled the void, blocking out the light. "The humans do not fight with fleets," one soldier whispered. "They fight with entire skies." At first no one believed the tales. But then it happened. In the Orion sector, the Empire gathered its largest force yet, 10,000 ships, enough to erase a star system. They expected a quick victory. Instead, when they arrived, the darkness shifted. The humans were waiting. Their fleet covered the stars. For hours, both sides stared at each other across the void. The silence was heavier than thunder. Then the humans attacked. The battle became chaos. Waves of fighters crashed against walls of fire. Battleships split open like burning suns. The void turned into a graveyard of steel. But the humans did not stop. They swarmed, they clawed, they sacrificed. Every ship that fell took another enemy down with it. The Empire's admirals shouted orders, but the tide was too strong. Humanity was not simply fighting for territory. They were fighting for survival, for freedom, for every life behind them. And that kind of fire could not be put out. By the end of the battle, the Empire still stood. But their fleets were broken, their pride shattered. For the first time in history, the Council admitted fear. "They are not insects," one general whispered. "They are fire, and fire spreads." Across the galaxy, the truth spread faster than any fleet. The invincible Empire could be defeated, and humanity was proving it. Star by star, world by world, the Great War had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The fall of arrogance. The Empire had ruled for ages, but now its glory was crumbling. Rebellions burned on distant worlds. Fleets that once swept across the galaxy now limped home in silence. Their enemies had always surrendered, but humanity had shown no fear. And so the war came to its final stage. The humans had bled, yes. They had lost countless lives and ships. But with every loss, they had grown stronger. Their fleets spread like wildfire. Their armies marched like storms. Where once the Empire stood as masters, now they stood surrounded. The humans had one goal left, the heart of the beast. The capital. It was the jewel of the Empire, a world covered in spires of silver and towers of glass. Its skies were always filled with banners, its streets with parades of soldiers. To the Empire it was untouchable. To the galaxy it was unbreakable. But on one dark day, the sky above the capital filled with shadows. Not from clouds, not from storms, from ships, human ships. Thousands upon thousands, covering the stars until the light vanished. For the first time in history, the capital looked up and saw fear written in the heavens. The Empire's fleet rose to defend it. Dreadnoughts larger than mountains, cruisers lined like teeth of a beast. The admirals shouted their orders, determined to hold the last wall of their pride. The humans did not hesitate. The battle began with thunder. Fire rained across the skies. Explosions split the air. The city below shook as if the ground itself feared the storm. Human fleets pressed forward with no pause, their formations tight, their weapons relentless. The Empire fought back with everything it had. They poured their fire into the void, destroying hundreds of human ships. Yet every gap in the human lines closed again, filled by another vessel. Every explosion only seemed to push them harder. The capital's defenses cracked. Human ships pierced the outer walls, their fighters swarming like endless waves. The citizens of the Empire watched from their towers as the unthinkable happened. Their invincible guardians fell, one after another, on the bridge of a human flagship. A captain gave the order that echoed across the galaxy, "End it, end the Empire." And then the skies broke. The human fleet surged forward, splitting the enemy apart. Cruisers burned, dreadnoughts shattered. The once proud banners of the Empire fell into flames. In the streets below, silence filled the air as the people realized the truth. The war was lost. The rulers of the Empire gathered in their great hall, a palace of crystal and steel. For centuries, they had spoken with voices of command. Now their voices trembled. They sent desperate messages to the humans. "Spare us, negotiate, we can surrender." But humanity did not answer at once. Their fleet stood above the world, silent, their weapons ready. The Empire held its breath. Finally, the humans spoke. Their message was simple, and it carried across every world. "We are not here to enslave. We are not here to rule. We are here to end tyranny." The palace doors were thrown open. Human soldiers walked through, not with arrogance, but with resolve. They did not kill the rulers, they removed them. They did not burn the city, they freed it, and the galaxy gasped. For all its might, the Empire had never shown mercy. But the humans did. That was their true strength. They were not conquerors. They were liberators. On that day, the galaxy learned a new truth. Humanity was dangerous not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, but because they refused to break. They fought for survival, for freedom, and for hope. The Empire had conquered worlds easily. But when humanity's fleet covered the stars, their arrogance shattered. The age of the Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun.